When Samantha told me she wanted to separate, I felt my chest tighten. "Let's just stay friends while we figure things out," she said, her voice calm but distant. Her words were like ice in my veins. After 6 years of marriage, this was how she wanted to handle it, casual, almost detached. I nodded, hiding the storm brewing inside me. We had been drifting for months, subtle signs I chose to ignore. The late nights at work, the small irritations, the quiet dinners where conversation died before dessert. I thought I was being patient, supportive, loyal. But apparently patience wasn't enough. Samantha left the next morning for a weekend trip, insisting we keep things light in her absence. I spent the day staring at our home, feeling both relief and emptiness. That evening I texted her just to check in. No response. My heart sank, but I told myself this was the new reality. Friends, nothing more. The twist came 3 days later. Samantha's best friend, Emily, came over. She had always been around, always part of our lives, but something was different this time. She sat across from me, casually chatting, but her eyes held an intensity one hadn't noticed before. She asked how I was coping, and I answered honestly, maybe too honestly. I told her about the emptiness, the nights spent lying awake, the silent house that had once felt full of love. Over the next few weeks, Emily's presence became a constant in my life. She didn't intrude. She simply existed in the quiet moments, listening, understanding, offering small comforts that Samantha no longer could. Slowly, I began to rely on her, not in the casual way one relies on a friend, but in a deeper, more intimate way. One night, we found ourselves talking until the early hours, laughter and vulnerability mixing in the dim light of my living room. It was during that conversation I realized something terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I was falling for her. Emily had always been there in the background of my life, but now she was the one who truly saw me. I struggled with guilt. Samantha was still in the picture, or at least technically she was. But every interaction with Emily was a reminder of what I had been missing, what I had been craving for months. Attention, care, respect, and understanding. It wasn't just attraction. It was validation of my worth, something I hadn't felt from Samantha in a long time. The boundaries blurred gradually. One evening, Emily leaned closer during a movie night, her hand brushing mine. I didn't pull away. In fact, I let her, and in that moment I understood how far things had shifted. What had started as friendship was now something else entirely. A connection I couldn't ignore. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions I hadn't anticipated. Every time Samantha called or sent a message, I felt a twinge of guilt, but it was quickly replaced by the comfort I found in Emily's presence. She wasn't just a distraction. She was becoming my anchor. The way she listened, the way she laughed at my sarcastic jokes, the way she remembered every little detail I casually mentioned. It all made me realize how emotionally absent Samantha had become. One Friday evening, Samantha stopped by to check in, insisting she still wanted to be friends. I welcomed her into the living room, trying to maintain composure. She sat on the couch, talking casually about her week, unaware of the subtle shift that had already taken place in our household. Emily was in the kitchen preparing tea, humming softly. Samantha glanced at her with that friendly smile, oblivious to the tension growing in me. As the evening progressed, Samantha left to run errands, leaving Emily and me alone. The air between us was different now, charged, electric. We didn't speak about Samantha, but every glance, every subtle touch carried unspoken acknowledgement. For the first time in months, I felt alive again. Then came the weekend. Samantha was out of town, and Emily and I decided to spend Saturday together, just talking and watching movies. What started as a casual hangout quickly turned into something more. She leaned against me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder, and I felt the warmth of connection I had been starved for. The guilt gnawed at me, but the honesty of our feelings was undeniable. I was falling in love with her. Later that evening, Emily looked up at me with a softness in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "Mark, I know this is complicated," she whispered, "but I can't pretend I don't feel this either. I've cared about you for a long time, and I've seen how unhappy you've been. I want to be there for you. If you'll let me." Her words struck me, both terrifying and liberating. I had been living in a marriage where I felt invisible, emotionally abandoned, and now here was someone who not only understood my pain but wanted to share it, nurture it, and grow with me. I knew the choice I was facing wasn't simple. Betrayal wasn't just something Samantha had committed. It was something I would be complicit in if I let myself fall fully for Emily, while still connected to my wife. But deep down, I realized I had already crossed that line in my heart. The feelings weren't fleeting, they were real, undeniable, and powerful. And the moment I accepted that truth, I knew there was no turning back. Sunday morning arrived quietly, the house still bathed in soft sunlight. Samantha was out of town, and Emily had stayed over the night before. We sat at the kitchen table drinking coffee in silence, the weight of unspoken truths hanging in the air. I could see the conflict in her eyes, but there was also determination. A readiness to embrace whatever this was between us. "Mark," Emily began softly, "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I also can't ignore how I feel. I know Samantha still matters to you, but I need to be honest. I want to be with you fully." Her words resonated in me, echoing my own thoughts. I had spent months wondering if I was betraying Samantha simply by feeling alive again, by laughing, by being seen. But this wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, about reclaiming my heart after years of neglect. When Samantha returned that evening, I felt a pang of guilt, but I also felt clarity. She walked in, smiling, trying to rekindle a friendship that no longer existed in the same way. Emily was in the living room with me, and Samantha paused, sensing the shift. The tension was palpable. "Hi, Mark," Samantha said softly, avoiding Emily's gaze. "How was your weekend?" I looked at her, choosing my words carefully. "It was fine. I've spent some time reflecting on things, and I realized some truths I can't ignore anymore." Samantha's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. I can't stay in a relationship where I feel invisible, where my needs, my emotions are ignored. I found someone who sees me, Emily, and she's become important to me. Her face fell, the mask of casual detachment finally breaking. For the first time, I saw real fear and regret, the consequences of her choices laid bare. "You're leaving me for her," she whispered, disbelief and hurt blending in her voice. "Yes," I said quietly but firmly. "I tried to make it work, but I can't anymore. I've already given my heart to someone who values it." Samantha froze, and in that moment, I realized the weight of truth had finally settled. She had asked for friendship, thinking it would shield her from the consequences of neglect. But life has a way of revealing what's real. And what was real for me in the end was Emily. Weeks later, Emily and I began a relationship, slowly, carefully, but fully. We didn't rush, didn't hide. But we embraced the honesty and connection that had been missing for years. It wasn't about revenge or spite. It was about love, about finally being seen and heard. Sometimes, walking away from the past is the only way to step into the life you were meant to live. Samantha wanted friendship while we separated. But I chose life, clarity, and love with someone who truly cared. And in the end, it was the choice I needed to make to reclaim my happiness and my heart.